Hello and welcome to Media Mondays. I'm your host, the Zombie Creeper, and I'll be reviewing a TV show. What TV show? Well, you know what? I'm just not going to harp on this again. You should have been reading the description since April 4th. Anyways, let's just get right into it. Abbott and Costello were a comedy team comprised of Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, two of the only three good New Jerseyites I've seen. The two had met in vaudeville theaters a few times before 1935, but they primarily got to know each other starting then. Their first performance only happened because Lou's main acting partner had fallen ill and Abbott was his substitute. The two eventually formed a comedy team the same year, with Abbott as the straight man, which essentially means he was the more mature and intelligent of the duo, and Costello as the dim-witted comic. On February 3rd, 1938, on the Kate Smith Hour, which is a radio show because television didn't exist yet, the team debuted their most famous routine, Who's on First?
Now, what's the guy's name on first base?
Now, what is on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who is on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. We're not talking.
The duo is most well known for their routines. They had their own radio show for a few months in 1940, then again from 1942 to 1947, then with a different sponsor from 1947 to 1949. However, starting in 1940, the duo began a fruitful film career where they were cast as supporting roles in Universal's One Night in the Tropics. However, Abbott and Costello stole the show with some of their classic routines, such as Who's on First, and one I didn't even know existed until, like, a month ago.
I work for you 1 year, that's 365 days, equals $365. Give me that $365 and I'll get out, I'll abdicate.
Now, wait a minute, not so fast. How many hours a day did you work?
8 hours a day.
And how many hours are there in a day?
Don't try to put anything over on me, will you, Abbott?
What do you mean?
Look, there's 24 hours in a day, all but February, which has 28.
Most of their films were with Universal, although there were a couple times they worked with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and other studios. Their second film, Buck Privates, was released in 1941 and cast them as stars, launching them into the limelight, as the film was a massive hit. Throughout the 1940s, they had quite a few successful films, and while there was a hiccup in their relationship in 1946, they eventually amended. 1946's movies were special because the two barely interacted in those films. Notable films over their entire film career after Buck Privates include 1941's Hold That Ghost, a comedy horror film, 1942's Who Done It, a murder mystery which was the first thing I ever saw from the duo, 1946's The Time of Their Lives, a movie in which two patriots from the Revolutionary War end up as ghosts bound to a mansion, and it takes Abbott outrunning the cops to help them. 1948's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, a crossover between Frankenstein's monster, Count Dracula, the Wolfman, and the duo, all of which had their original actors. 1952's Abbott and Costello Meet Captain Kidd, a film in color which, wasn't released by Universal, and too many to list afterwards. However, starting in 1951, they dabbled in the new realm of television, joining their list of rotating hosts of the Colgate Comedy Hour, performing vaudeville in front of a live audience and revising their routines.
Well, keep quiet, please. I'm doing the trick. Now, we place it over the bottle like that. Then we come over here and we place it over the little glass. Hocus pocus, alakazam, and over here we now have... Over here!
However, starting in September of 1952 and ending in May of 1954, they finally got their own television show. It was 52 30-minute episodes over 2 seasons in a sitcom fittingly titled The Abbott and Costello Show. This series is considered to be one of the most influential comedy programs in history. Even Jerry Seinfeld said that this show's focus on comedy more than life lessons was the inspiration for his own show, Seinfeld. Lou owned the show and Bud worked on salary. The first season was filmed in Culver City, California, and the second season was filmed in the then called Motion Picture Center Studios, which then became Desilu Cahuenga Studios. Desilu's the company that produced I Love Lucy, which aired around the same time as this show did. After the show, their films began to dwindle in popularity, with their final film, 1956's Dance With Me, Henry, being a box office flop. The duo dissolved in 1957. Oh, and here's a paragraph I didn't want to read. Lou Costello died a few days before his 53rd birthday on March 3rd, 1959 of a heart attack. Abbott spent most of the rest of his life in misery as financial difficulties, a series of strokes, alcoholism, and general declining health plagued him. He died from prostate cancer on April 24th, 1974. Their legacies live on through all the people they inspired, and the show has been re-released on DVD sets. First on VHS, I know, I just used two different mediums, shut up. to VHS starting in the 90s, then on DVD in the 2000s and 2010s. In December of 2021, a company called Classic Flicks released Season 1 on Blu-ray and DVD, with the first 4K scans of the original film negatives. Some episodes can even be viewed without the laughter in the background. Speaking of the laughter, it was shown to a studio audience after it was filmed and they recorded those live reactions, essentially a more convoluted version of how I Love Lucy did it, and then inserted those reactions. Essentially, it was a more genuine laugh track. Firstly, a spoiler alert! Anyways, the show lacks general continuity and most of Season 1's plot lines are driven around a routine. However, the show still manages to have a plot, even if it is relatively simple. Season 2 not only eliminated a lot of main characters, but was more story-driven. Both seasons have 26 episodes each, totaling 52. Season 1 features the boys as unemployed actors living in a rooming house, while Season 2 eliminates the actor part. The actor part essentially meant that every episode started and ended with the two discussing things on stage, with a break in the middle to do the same thing. Season 1's character roster included Bud and Lou, as well as Sidney Fields, who plays himself, their landlord, who simply wants their room rent, Hillary Brooke, who plays herself, Lou's neighbor and sometimes love interest, Botch Galoop, played by Joe Kirk, who is actually Lou's brother-in-law, an Italian immigrant, Mike the Cop, played by Gordon Jones, a hot-headed policeman who constantly loses his patience with Lou, and is the only character on the show who's dumber than Lou, and Stinky, played by Joe Besser, future member of the Three Stooges, a whiny child wearing a Little Lord Fauntleroy suit who's friends with Costello. Fields and Kirk often had episode-specific roles to fit the plot on top of their character. Bobby Barber and Joan Shawley also played whatever support roles were needed. Several episodes featured a chimpanzee named Bingo who was dressed like Costello. She was, quote, fired after biting Lou. Some of Season 1's notable episodes are Jail, where Costello damages a neighbor's bucket and gets dragged in court for damages, where Abbott's stubbornness to give in to the demands to pay land Lou in prison, where he and a crazed cellmate perform the famous Niagara Falls routine. There's The Music Lovers, where Lou has to stop Hillary's father from taking her back to the country by impressing them with his piano skills, of which he has none. They have to fake it with a record player, but Abbott falls asleep and ruins the scheme. Then there's The Actor's Home, which features Who's on First. Season 2 eliminated Hillary, Botchagaloop, and Stinky, although Hillary appeared for a minute or two in one episode. And many episodes are mainly interactions between Abbott, Costello, Fields, and Mike the Cop. Some notable episodes are Life Insurance, where Mr. Fields takes out a life insurance policy on Lou, but miscommunication and mishearing leads Lou to believe that Abbott and Fields are conspiring to kill him and get the money. Abbott then takes Costello camping, where he attempts to keep a good distance from what he believes to be a scheming Abbott. There's Uncle from New Jersey, where Bud stops Fields from evicting the boys by telling him that Lou's wealthy Uncle Rupert is coming to visit, and that Lou is his sole heir. However, Lou's uncle has been dead for 15 years, so Lou has to pretend to be the uncle, and wackiness ensues. Lastly, there's Fencing Master, where Lou is tricked by a mad scientist into believing he is invincible. He insults a fencing champion, and the two eventually end up having to duel each other. I only listed 6 episodes out of 52, but I think you get the hint. This is one of my favorite shows. Like most of my music tastes, I preferred older TV shows, like this show, I Love Lucy, and Taxi from the 70s. Although I don't watch TV much anyway. I really don't know what to say about this. It's a funny show, and the routines are classic comedy. And, yeah, I guess that's it. Media Mondays is over. Drink your water and stop falling over. Wow.